War on April 28, Ukraine in good position to counterattack, Russia criticizes US. Russia has accused the United States of being directly involved in the conflict, despite not hiding their planned counterattack for Ukraine. CNN quoted US General Christopher Cavoli, commander of NATO forces in Europe, who said that Ukraine is in a good position to counterattack Russia, during a hearing at the House Armed Services Committee. He added that the two sides had been working on the possibility of a surprise attack. Cavoli also believes that the Russian infantry force is now larger than at the beginning of the war, despite suffering many casualties. He said that the Russian side still has many options, with 1,000 fighters and bombers available, and has the ability to use full conventional power. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova criticized the US, claiming that they are behind the planning of Ukraine's planned counterattack. The West openly says that it will do everything possible for the counterattack of the Ukrainian armed forces, which is planned in the near future, to succeed. That means they don't even hide that they are behind all the military planning, Zakharova said. Zakharova also emphasized that representatives of Western countries are directly involved in the conflict by demanding that the Russian side bear the maximum possible losses. War situation. The Russian Defense Ministry announced on April 27 that Russian forces had taken control of 4 housing complexes in Bakhmut. Yevgeny Prigozhin, founder of the Wagner mercenary group, Russia, admitted that he was joking when he said that his forces would stop shelling Bakhmut so that Ukrainian forces could lead American journalists to the city. The British Ministry of Defense reported that Russia was establishing combat positions at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, specifically above the roofs of some reactor buildings. This is the first move that shows the factory complex is directly integrated into the operational defense plan since Russia took control of the place more than a year ago. According to British analysis, the new Russian movement is part of preparations for Ukraine's counteroffensive operation, which is expected to take place in the near future. Russian forces in the region announced that they had shot down 9 missiles of the high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, with the Buk air defense complex in a total of 3 attacks by Ukrainian troops in the direction of Zaporizhzhia. Petro Andriushenko, an advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, said that Russian troops were reinforcing defenses around the city on the Sea of Azov. He added that military trucks appeared in large numbers in the village of Mangush and partly in the direction of Berdyansk. The trucks were loaded with wood for the purpose of fortification. China will send special envoy to Ukraine. China announced it would send a special envoy to Ukraine and other countries following the first phone call between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky since the outbreak of hostilities. The special envoy is former Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Li Huan, and he will be the highest-ranking former Chinese official to visit Ukraine after Russia launched a special military operation there. The Kremlin welcomed any effort that could end the war, but spokesman Dmitry Peskov reiterated that Moscow still needs to achieve its goals before the conflict can be resolved. On the Ukrainian side, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that the phone conversation between the two leaders of Ukraine and China was fruitful and could open a new phase of bilateral cooperation efforts.
UPS started again in Sudan just before the ceasefire ended. The Sudanese army agreed to have a yarn in Juba, South Sudan to discuss extending the ceasefire before it ended on April 27. No one knows what the RSF's response was though. On the final day of a ceasefire brokered by the US, deadly brawls broke out in Darfur, while the military attacked paramilitary forces in the capital city, Khartoum. According to AFP, fighter jets were seen flying over the northern suburbs of Khartoum, while the ground troops exchanged heavy fire. Since the conflict between the Army and the Rapid Support Force, RSF, began on April 15, there have been several attempts at ceasefire. Fighting broke out in Khartoum and nearby cities, with both sides blaming each other for the conflict. They have been carrying out airstrikes, shelling and gunfights for days. The recent clashes erupted while political factions were trying to negotiate a transitional government. Under the internationally backed plan, both the military and the RSF had to give up power. However, two controversial issues, the incorporation of the RSF into the regular armed forces, and the timeline for the military to be placed under civilian government supervision, prevented the signing of the agreement. Before the 3-day ceasefire ended on April 27, the military agreed to talk in Juba about extending it, but the RSF's response is not known. The Sudanese Ministry of Health confirmed that at least 512 people died, and 4,193 were injured in the conflict. On April 27, Egypt's foreign ministry stated that around 16,000 people had crossed the border from Sudan into Egypt, including 14,000 Sudanese. On April 27, Canada conducted the first flight to evacuate its citizens out of Sudan.